Okay, good evening, council. We are live. And I was going to say we're about to go live, but apparently we are live. And welcome to our final regular council meeting of this term. I can confirm that we are all here and that the meeting is being called to order. Councillor Thompson, as the longest-serving member on this council, would you do the honor of reading the land acknowledgement statement?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would be honored for sure. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take action toward real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. Thank you.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone and seconded by Councillor Withy. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting agenda dated Monday, November 7th, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated with the deletion of the following: 7.1, community branding, further information, and 7.2, recommendation GC 14122, community branding, postponed from the September 26, 2022 council meeting. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will move right on to deputations, and we have one tonight, Morgan Lonsdale from the Huntsville BIA, and on Kent Park, and additional lighting displays, and I think Morgan is zooming in. Do we have Morgan yet? One moment.
Hello?
Hi, Morgan.
Hello.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen. So thank you for having me on this final council of term. I wish all those the very best who are leaving, and I look forward to continuing to work with those staying. So we're here, I'm here on behalf of the Downtown Huntsville BIA with a request for Kent Park for this holiday season. So I have met with town staff and the Eclipse team with the Chamber of Commerce to go over this space in more detail and the logistics required. So the first request we're hoping for is to install a large Christmas tree in Kent Park. We would work in partnership with the Rotary Club like we've done in the past at Town Hall. We are hoping to put it, there is a diagram in a few slides, but we're hoping to have this installed or put up closer to the nook in beside spectacles, so it wouldn't interfere with the canopy. So we're not putting it in amongst the lights. It would be around a 12-foot tree. The canopy is 15 feet, so we think this would look nice with the canopy as well. And in terms of power, we've worked on the power. There's some power in the garden bed, so we would be requesting to use that power instead of the lamppost power. The second request is to install a 3D holiday arch. So this we're hoping to put at the corner of Grinnell Street and Main Street. It's 9 feet by 10 feet, and it lights up. Again, we would not be putting this near the lights canopy. It would be off to the side of the light canopy, and the power would also come from the garden and not the lamppost as well. So this is a diagram. It is in a mall, but this is the diagram of the arch that we did order. We have ordered this. This one's not 3D, but the one we are hoping to put up is 3D, just because of it being outside and the elements of the winter. So here's a diagram that I just wanted to provide that does show the light canopy and where they're kind of rigging their poles. I believe you have seen this before, but I just wanted to show that where we're asking to put some holiday features is not, like I mentioned, not interfering with the lights. We kind of wanted to see what the lights look like this year, see what these two features look like this year without overcrowding the middle of the space. And then the stars also show where the power, so the power wouldn't be interfering with the light canopy as well. I also wanted to mention, in terms of the power, we recognize I know snow removal is is on the agenda, but we would make sure that the cords and everything are not impacting snow removal, as well as folks walking in and amongst the park. We'll make sure that that's kind of all tucked away so there's no safety hazard. I also wanted to mention the removal of these features. We all know winter and things freezing to the ground, so the Christmas tree we would cut down like we do at Town Hall, but the base might have to stay depending on how frozen it is to the ground. And same with this 3D arch at the beginning of the park. We're hoping we could take it away early winter after the holiday season, but it does depend on the feasibility of that and if they are frozen to the ground. So the BIA essentially wants to enhance this space. That's kind of we think that this would create a very welcoming spot in downtown Huntsville. We would like to host our tree lighting ceremony here. Typically we do it at Town Hall, but the hope is that if we have a tree in Kent Park, we can create a bit more of a holiday gathering instead of on the steps and the sidewalk of Main Street. So we're hoping to have carolers and hot chocolate and kind of make it a bit more of an event. And I do know other community members are also looking at this space. So we just thought that this would be a good addition to the lights that the Eclipse team are working on. I also wanted to mention the ice sculptures. So we did this last year. This is kind of a festival in partnership with the Eclipse Walk with Light and the Snow Village that came to Rivermill with Dan Watson with the Festival of the Arts. So we are hoping to do this again. We've increased our budget from 10,000 to 5,000, or 10,000 to 15,000. So it's the same concept as last year. We want to place ice sculptures along Main Street. We worked with town staff and business owners on where these would be placed, but we are suggesting and requesting that Kent Park would be a wonderful location also for a couple ice sculptures or one large one, kind of under the light canopy. They don't require power or anything, so we can place them kind of wherever snow removal, and we think that the ice sculptures would look good. We're still working on the details, but I wanted to add this in just so we kind of have a bigger picture of the winter season and what the BIA is looking for or looking to do in Kent Park. These are just some pictures of the beautiful ice sculptures we did. We've heard amazing feedback, so we hope to, like I said, expand this in February is when we would be doing this. So in sum, the BIA is simply just requesting the use of Kent Park and the power for the Christmas tree, a holiday arch, and then the ice sculptures later in the winter. We've met with town staff, we're working with town staff, but we'll continue to work with town staff if that's necessary on the final logistics, like I said, in terms of snow removal and power and things like that. But the BIA is prepared and will fund these initiatives. Like I said, we've already ordered the arch. If Kent Park isn't maybe the ideal location, we would still love it to be downtown. The King Street walkway, the Town Hall walkway could be possible options. But like I said, we're hoping that it would complement, and you guys would agree that it would enhance Kent Park and go in Kent Park. So we would coordinate the install, we would coordinate the takedown, and we would fund the initiatives as well. So we're really just looking for the use of Kent Park and then the power as well. And that is it for me. So I'd like to thank you again, and if there's any questions or comments, I'm here.
Thanks, Morgan. If you stop sharing your screen, I think we'll see you again, and we'll see if council have any questions. Councillor Wiebe.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Morgan. So I've got a question about the arch, the lit arch, and one is, I know you mentioned it, but tell me again, it's rated for outdoor weather, and so it could withstand wind and heavy snow and that type of thing? Is that correct?
Yes, we've ordered, the one I did show you is in a mall, but we
Right.
did order the one that would it'll be 3D, so it'll definitely withstand the wind. And it's, in terms of like snow accumulation and things like that, it shouldn't do that. It's
Okay.
from the same company that we've worked with and town staff have worked with, Classic Displays, the lights that we installed in King Street walkway and things like that, so yes.
Can I just follow up quick too?
Sure.
Okay, and in follow-up, so there's going to be a light display that's created by the art team at Eclipse. Are you certain that the designers of that light display would be okay with adding this light display out front of their light display? Do you know what I mean? If I were presenting a piece of my art and someone decided they wanted to put a piece of artwork out front to enhance it, I don't know how I'd feel about it. So the question would be, are they 100% comfortable with that type of placement?
Yeah, so we've met with the Eclipse, and we're even, depending on the approval and the timeline, perhaps going to work with their team to even help install these things. So they are on board. Our light canopies, our features will be all warm white, so they won't interfere with what they're doing. And they helped us pick the location of kind of keeping them off to the side. So the light canopy is still kind of the main focus, but then you have a tree, and then you kind of have this entry point to their light canopy. So yes, they're definitely in favor of what we're doing. And the goal and the hope is to obviously expand or change. You know, we chatted about permanent trees and different things like that. So this was kind of just our first step in trying to work with the light canopy and add to what they're doing.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick one about how do you anchor this archway? I'm just curious with the walkway, how it actually anchors to the ground.
I don't 100% know. I'm working with the company on that. They said it's very simple. It might be sandbags, and I'm not entirely sure until I see it and I work with the like I said, hopefully the riggers and the people who are doing the Eclipse lighting to install it. Because I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's sandbags, but it might be. It's 3D, so like the way I've been explained is it's because it's 3D, the angles of it make it quite secure on the ground. We couldn't do a 2D, like we couldn't do the one that they displayed in the mall that I showed you. It would flip over.
Okay, so Morgan, you know the routine, we deal with a resolution later on in the meeting, but one thing I noticed about the resolution is the request was not there for the ice sculptures to be placed in the park, so that's not currently in this resolution. Somebody may amend it to include that, or it may be something that you would have to come back to the future meeting to ask. But however it goes, a question about the ice sculptures. It seems last year that the longevity of most of the sculptures lasted where they were covered or where they were shady. How are the ones in Kent Park going to survive?
That's a good question. It is depending on the weather. Last year we thought, you know, even if they lasted a couple days, it was worth it for that weekend. We put tarps all over them during a pretty heavy rainstorm last year. So in all honesty, I think it's just depending on what we're capable of doing and how the sun and how they weather. We broke a few that had to be broken, and then some stayed longer. So I would hope that the Kent Park ones could withstand, I don't know this you know, it is sunny, we put umbrellas up because of the sun. So I'm not sure the longevity of it.
Okay. All right, so we will get to this later on in the meeting. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a resolution moved by Counselor Stone, seconded by Counselor Thompson. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting minutes dated September 26, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that carries. And committee reports. The first up is the library, and I must apologize, this is the August library meeting, and I was absent for that. But if there's any specific questions to the library, I'd try to answer them. And seeing none, we're going to move on to the Asphodon Community Center. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, as indicated in the report, quorum was not met, so we didn't do any sort of voting on anything in particular. I was a little late to that meeting, but I did make it, but there was some rerouting of Allensville area that night, so I had to be rerouted and got to the meeting late. One thing I will add is that since those meeting minutes, though, I've been made aware that the Christmas party is December 11th. I think it says in the meeting minutes it's going to be December 3rd, but December 11th is when the big jolly old elf himself can make it to the Asphodon Hall, and so the Christmas party for the kids is that day. And next Monday, the 14th, is their elections to do their groups. So if anyone is interested in being part of Asphodon Hall Board Committee, to come on out to the meeting next Monday night on the 14th at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you for that update. Committee of Adjustment, Councillor Stone.
We had 6 applications. 5 of them were approved, and one was quite controversial. So committee decided to defer it so that the applicant and staff can work to address concerns about size, setbacks, environmental and visual concerns, as well as the neighbors' concerns. So hopefully they can find something that works for everybody.
Questions? Councillor Wiebe, Huntsville Lake Bay's Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Your Worship. We actually didn't have a meeting, so nothing to report.
And the municipal accommodation tax, and I do not recall whether I've reported on the last meeting or not. Anyways, depending on the timing, the Municipal Accommodation Tax Board has adopted their strategic plan. They forwarded off to town staff, I think for the next council to have a look at and hopefully weigh in on, and I'm not sure if that happened. We really should have minutes from these groups come to us. Maybe something for the next term of council. Anyways, if there's no questions, okay. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated September 27th, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated, with the exception of recommendation AAC 1422 to be pulled and voted on separately. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. It was a good meeting, last meeting of this term with this group of people, and they were a great group to work with. We had a deputation from Tammy Hunt from the Hudson Hair Salon and Spa, who had a fundraiser and raised some money, and she'd like to purchase some accessible picnic tables for downtown, but she's going to work with the town to find a location for those. Site plans, there's no issues, and then we talked about accessible parking. That was pretty well. The minutes are there. If anybody has any questions, that'd be great.
Any questions, council? All in favor, Councillor Stone? You were voting? All in favor of the resolution? And that carries. Oh, I'm sorry. How'd I do that? Oh, we did. Okay, I'm going backwards. Huntsville BIA, Councillor Stone. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. So Girlfriend's Getaway Weekend is this weekend, so lots happening downtown. On Thursday, the 24th, as Morgan mentioned, there's going to be the Customer Appreciation sales in the stores in the evening, and the tree lighting will be at 6 o'clock on the 24th. And Friday, the 25th, of course, is the Santa Claus Parade. That will be starting at 7 p.m. And then the following, the 26th and 27th of that weekend, the holiday market is happening downtown. And just so everyone knows, Santa will be downtown every Saturday through December from 1 to 3. That's it.
And Santa's location downtown? Anywhere in
That's a good
particular, or just
question.
all over? Okay.
I hope Kent Park.
Are there any questions? Okay. Sorry about that, Bob.
That's all right.
There was a long list of committees. I have a resolution moved by Counselor Armour and seconded by Counselor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that council requests staff investigate the potential of converting a parking space near the intersection of Main Street and Brunel Road into an accessible parking space. And this is the resolution pulled from accessibility. And Counselor Armour, did you want to speak further to it?
Not a whole lot about this one. This is the same one we just passed a while ago. We had just full circled around, came back, because we were looking at other parking spots for seniors, et cetera. But this is basically the same one we passed last time.
Questions? All in favor? That carries. Okay, just checking so I don't miss anything this time. Moved by Counselor Fitzgerald, seconded by Counselor Armour. Be it resolved that the General Committee meeting minutes dated September 28, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. Any questions of those minutes? All in favor? That carries. And a resolution moved by Counselor Alcock and seconded by Counselor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting minutes dated October 12, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as printed and circulated. Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship. We approved 3 zoning bylaw amendments as well as 2 site plan applications, and one of which is the redevelopment of Vesting Toyota, and I noticed they've already started. So that was kind of exciting. And that was pretty much our planning meeting.
Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Okay, and we do not have 7.1 and 2 on the agenda, so we're down to reports from municipal officers. The health clinic in Huntsville, and I have 3 different recommendations, so I guess I can read the first one, and then we'll go to you, Julia, and I'll read the others after. I have a resolution moved by Counselor Withey and seconded by Counselor Weed. Be it resolved that staff prepare a lease agreement with Dr. Melanie Marr and the Algonquin Family Health Team for the purpose of providing a medical clinic at the Huntsville Public Library Annex 1 Minerva Street East, including but not limited to the terms outlined in Report Corp. 2022-85. And further, that the CAO will be delegated the authority to enter into the lease agreement and any related agreements to the satisfaction of the CAO and the Huntsville Public Library Board. And further, that the CAO and library CEO amend the town and library memorandum of understanding to reflect the temporary changes in responsibility regarding the annex. Julia.
Thank you, Your Worship. So back in July, Dr. Marr and the Algonquin Family Health Team provided deputation to request support to this council for a medical clinic for unattached patients. Staff were directed to work with Dr. Marr and other healthcare partners to find solutions to this initiative. So at this time, staff are recommending that the town, with the Huntsville Library Board, provide the library annex for this initiative. The library board is supportive of this request and would like to further review the specifics of the agreement, but they are supportive of this request. And they will be looking at it at the next board meeting if this is passed tonight. So also to show the town's support for this healthcare clinic as a community partner, we need to show our support for Ontario Health to show that we are a community partner and that will help with the funding for this initiative. And it really demonstrates that if we are providing this, that it shows our commitment that our council has to community healthcare. So as the healthcare providers have requested that the town waive the fee for rental for this premise, it's prudent for the town to designate the facility as a municipal capital facility. So this allows us to provide financial assistance to that organizations to help with this initiative. As well, ensures that no assessment is triggered for any operations that happen there. As well, it's required under the AODA that any municipal capital facility be reviewed by the Accessibility Committee. So that is on their agenda past tonight, that they will be looking at this building just to make sure that it meets accessibility requirements. And in addition, through discussions with our Facilities and Roads Department, they do recommend that if the building is being used for this purpose, that we do at this time fix that parking lot. So that's the last part of the motion there.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Withy?
Thank you, Worship. So maybe, I'm not sure if this is the right time, because you mentioned there's a motion and then we're going to discuss other motions, or?
Well, there's just three motions, three separate motions for this.
So,
Go ahead.
okay. The question I had, if it's designated, if we're redesignating the building, does that not include, and I understand that they're asking about improvements to the parking lot, but does that include maintenance as well, if it's in that category? My question was concerning where it says here that parking lot, snow maintenance, and snow removal will be the responsibility of the clinic.
Through your worship. So in our draft agreement, what we look at is saying that reimbursement for those expenses would be the responsibility of the clinic. However, the town staff would be looking at anything outdoors. So we would be doing the work on that, but they would be reimbursing us for the cost for that.
Paul?
Thank you. Could that cost not be rolled into something like waiving rent?
I guess if council wishes to not charge them for that, then we could certainly look at that. When we did talk to Ontario Health, I believe that was something that they would support contributing to.
Oh, well, okay, somebody else pays for it, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think this is an excellent initiative. I'm 100% behind it, and full steam ahead.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Yeah, I like the idea as well. The question I have, are we going to deal with each of these recommendations separately and ask to be approved, all three of them? Is that sort of what the?
No, we'll approve each one individually.
Individually?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe my concern then would be with the next recommendation?
Okay, you
Okay,
can,
thanks.
yeah. So, yeah, just by way, a little bit more explanation, you know, we have made the decision to provide the annex and to pick up the same costs that we were picking up with the library budget. Ontario Health has come to at one point, we were talking about some kind of sort of bridge financing to get them up and going. We don't need to do that. Ontario Health is at the table, and they're very excited about this project. So it's a public-private partnership, and our piece is going to be providing the building and the space and ensuring that parking lot is accessible and works well. So this is a great thing for our community, for the number of unattached patients we have. So we'll deal with this first one then. All in favor? And that carries. And the second resolution, which is moved by Councillor Withy and seconded by Councillor Wiebe, whereas the town desires to designate the municipal facility at 1 Minerva Street East, known as the Huntsville Public Library Annex, as a municipal capital facility for the purposes of healthcare. Now therefore be it resolved that the town-owned property located at 1 Minerva Street East, Huntsville, be declared for health services for public use pending a required review of the location by the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And further, staff be directed to prepare a bylaw designating the Huntsville Public Library Annex as a municipal capital facility and finalize a municipal capital facilities agreement. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any necessary documentation relating to the municipal capital facility. Now, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, the question I have is with regards to the designation of this to a municipal facility. I happened to be on the library board when the library board bought the building and for the annex. And a lot of that money came out of library reserves, but I think there was also a significant donation, private donation type of thing. So I'm just wondering, what does that do to the legality of the ownership of this building as far as the town is concerned? I realize that the library is part of the town. I appreciate all that, but they are their own board as well. But it's the fact that I think maybe half of that, or maybe a little bit more than half of the purchase of that building was through a private donation, I think.
I think this is, I'm going to ask the CAO to speak to it, but this is a temporary, this has a finish date at some point. So the library board has already signed off on using this facility for a period of time, but the CAO may be able to recall the funding to purchase it and the ownership and.
Thank you, Worship. So there was a donation that was part of that. It was put into the library reserve, and the purchase was made by the Huntsville Public Library Board. The board actually doesn't have the legal ability to purchase property. So as you'll recall, it was purchased through the town of Huntsville. There were provisions in place that were within an agreement that spoke to if at any said time that the library board did not feel that they required the building, that the town of Huntsville would have the first right of refusal, but it would have to be deemed at the purchase price. It would have to be equal. What's happening here is it's still under the ownership of the town of Huntsville and run by the library board. It's simply, if you will, a bit of a lease agreement that's having the lease fees waived for this particular use for 2 years. So the only requirement from the board was that they did require to review the lease, which we'll have the lease agreement reviewed by the board. But there's really no change in ownership or anything changing from the time that the property was acquired.
If I may, Your Worship, yes, thanks for that clarification on that. Now that you've refreshed my memory on all of that. But yeah, I'm totally in favor of this, and I think any way we can make this work, I think we should do it for sure. So I just was concerned about that particular aspect of it. Thank you.
Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Worship. So there's another point within that states that pending the review by the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I'm just wondering, is that going to just slow up and use up some really valuable time at this time? Because I'm wondering, as we change over councils, when would this advisory committee have the opportunity to meet? And so,
Madam CAO?
but I see someone.
Oh, thank you, Worship. So we are actually aware that it's very time sensitive, so our clerks are in the process of establishing a meeting, which I think they're trying to schedule for this week. I think there's some time.
Thursday, the 10th at 4 p.m.
The 10th, there you go. Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. So we are on it because we know it's time sensitive, and it is a requirement of the AODA, so.
And the final resolution, when we get to it, will deal with the ratification of that meeting, so. So let's vote on this one. All in favor? That carries. And the third recommendation from the same report, moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Wiebe. Whereas the town of Huntsville supports the leasehold improvements to be completed at 1 Minerva Street to support the use of a medical clinic, and further that council directs staff to make improvements to the annex parking lot in amount not to exceed $60,000 to be funded through the town's capital replacement reserve, and further that pursuant to Section 275 of the Municipal Act, ratifying the authorization of this resolution, the execution of the resolution be subject to the delegation authority provided by the Chief Administrative Officer by Law 2022-27. So this one speaks to the parking lot work, and once the Accessibility Committee weighs in, the CAO will have the authority to ratify it. Questions? All in favor? That carries. With a little luck, we'll have a walk-in clinic up and running by the 1st of December. Okay. Julia, you're staying here because the next resolution, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Wiebe, be it resolved that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the amending agreement for the contribution agreement with the Ontario Ministry Agriculture, Food, and Rural Affairs for the Rural Economic Development Program for Streetscape, and any other documentation is required under this agreement. Julia?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is to get an extension on our Red Streets. I forget what I'm doing here. This is to get an extension on our Red Streetscape grant. So I'm sure you're aware that we had this grant in place in 2021. We weren't able to use all the funding for the way signage signing. So that has been a bit delayed, but we think that we can get some of it done and before the end of March 2023. So this is just to have the approval to sign that agreement.
Questions? I just have one, and that is that March 2023 is not very far away, really, so, and I know that the branding has been deferred again, so it's important that we get something purchased that this funding can be applied to before that deadline.
Yeah, so I have been working with the Director of Development Services, and we've just thinking of some ways that we can use that funding on our main street for us in terms of the way signage, something that wouldn't be dependent on the branding, so.
Great. All in favor? That carries. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Wiebe, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that council approves the following amendments to bylaw 2021-52, consolidated list of road names for 911 civic addressing purposes. Additions: Carter Lane, private; Halvick Lane, town unassumed; Halvick Lane East, private; concession 6 and 7 Road West, town unassumed, and further that the amending bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration following the required provision of notice. Hi, Margaret, welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. The report is similar to reports I've brought previously, outlined there, and here to answer any questions.
Questions, council? Pretty straightforward. All in favor? That carries.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Okay, we're at reports from municipal officers, and the first is Crystal, the municipal election accessibility report.
Thank you. This report is in front of you for information only. We are required by the Act to bring this forward and make it public. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. No, I think it's great, and you guys did a great job. I just wondered about some things around, like, information sessions. I know it speaks to some stuff here in the report, and the Municipal Act, I mean, definitely doesn't preclude you from going out. So there were just, I guess, for your information, some feedback that we got were things like the night of the debates, having the help center open for more opportunity for people to be able to, interact and find out about the voting and that. There was also the session that was held in Port Sydney and ask for a table and some information, especially for rural constituents who have a very difficult time and can't maybe get into town to do some of that. So that, looking at that from an accessibility piece, and I understand the Act doesn't preclude you guys from doing that, because I understand Town of Bracebridge did that in their Foundry event, and Lake of Bays did it the night of their debate. They were able to have and host information sessions. So just maybe from an accessibility piece, especially for some of the rural communities, if there is some outlying events going on, it might be a good opportunity to host information. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Alcott.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you too, Crystal, it was an interesting report, and I was just curious, you guys did choose to put the alternate voting method into the Fairburn and Rogers Cove and Muskoka traditions, and using the touch screen and keyboard and all of that. And I wondered what the response rate was, if there were a number of people who decided to vote.
We did pull the numbers of how many people voted in those locations right after we went to them. So we could only pull by address. So if somebody had voted on their own in that time, it might have reflected in the numbers. But from the four that we visited, we had 74 people vote.
Councillor Weeb.
Thank you, Worship. I guess further to that, I was going to say, do we get a sense for how many people were able to vote that maybe wouldn't have been able to vote? Is there a way of measuring or even getting an idea around that? Because it's pretty critical. I mean, time after time, the number one reason to going to this method of voting, away from the traditional method, is to increase accessibility for people that might have, whether it's mobility issues or what have you. So I'm just wondering if we, locally or even province-wide, do we know where, what the increase or what the uptake is in those for those folks?
That's a great question, through you, Mayor Terziano. I would love that information. I can't think of the top of my head how we would, unless we went out and did a survey, the province did a survey, getting that information. I can just go off of some of the comments that we received. There's absolutely always pros and cons to any situation, and people voicing those pros and cons to any method that we choose. Some of the comments that we got back were, and not necessarily even to accessibility, but to be able to access the system of, I'm going to be out of the country, I'm going to be out of the town for that time, and just very excited that they were still able to take that letter with them and vote. We had a couple of responses directly with accessibility in regards to the phone and how happy that they were that they could do that. So it's just the individual responses that we've gotten, and we welcome them. Anyone who would like to send them in, we would love that. But unfortunately, I don't have that particular information.
Crystal, the care homes and retirement homes that you went to, were they on a list of places for you to visit, or did they actually request you to come, and could other places request you to come?
Absolutely. If places would like to request us to come, if they could let us know lots of time in advance. We do start booking everything. We start back in January and February of the election year, booking all of that. There is legislation in the Act that requires us to go to homes. It depends on the classification of the home and how many beds that they have, occupied beds that they have. So there are requirements within the Act that we have to. But I can say that not all four of them, we didn't have to go to all four of them. But it's just something that we've always done. But absolutely, that's something we could look at for the next election if that was something that council or that the clerk would like to do.
Well, that's great. I know this was just a report on accessibility, but you guys did an amazing job with the election. It seemed seamless to us. I don't know if it was to you, but you and your team did an amazing job on the election, so thank you. Okay, that was just for information. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Weeb. Be it resolved that council approve the following policies as attached to report HR 2022-11. Acceptable use of technology policy, email management policy, and electronic monitoring policy. And I see we've got a big team. We've got HR, we've got IT, and we've got Andrew. Okay, who's going to take the lead?
Since I'm the first on the list, I'll throw that one in here. It's the least exciting of the policies that we're going to talk about. So this is just a standard acceptable use policy, so it goes over the basic rules of what people should and shouldn't be doing, whether on our infrastructure and or on our networks. Details things of what you should be doing, so accessing the applications we provided, things like that. Ultimately, it gets into the unacceptable use, which covers off a large variety of items. But to highlight, it's things about going over disclosure of personal, private information or sensitive information is not allowed. Disclosure of town information and or resources, not allowed. Threatening, obscene, harassing, pornographic, all those types of things that people shouldn't be doing on our network. We also doing authorizing who should be accessing them, so people shouldn't be taking their laptops home and allowing their other family members to use those machines or accessing the network for whatever reason through, say, a VPN, things like that. And one of the key items we've added to this is getting into bulk deletion, which is actually referring to people who, at the end of their term with the town, wish to delete their own laptop. So we're basically denying that request because we do need access to those machines. It has town information on it that needs to be collected and preserved, both by legal items and to make sure business continues. We do account for the fact that, you know, there are times during the day when somebody may need to access a bank account to do something personal, so we have allowed for that in the policy, as long as it's not excessive. There is individual accountability. Your account, your sign-in component is your signature, and we're basically accepting people that if they're signed into a computer, they walk away. If someone else is to walk up to it, they have to own responsibility if they haven't locked that computer again to make sure that nobody else is using it. Offsite transmission, so that is actually getting through the process of making sure that people aren't sending information out. They're not using a personal Outlook account. They're not using Gmail accounts. They're not using Dropbox or other technologies like that to store town information on it. Those places aren't secure, they're not being backed up, and they're not necessarily accessible, so they kind of fail a lot of marks. So we like to avoid that if at all possible. And basically being responsible for the equipment itself. There's a certain duty of care to make sure that they're treating the equipment appropriately and that resource appropriately. And that pretty much covers the policy. It's obviously a lot more verbose, but I don't want to bore everybody too much.
Are we going to keep going, or should I go to questions first?
You can go ahead with questions.
Are there any questions of Ian? Because we've got 3 policies. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question is, as of November 30th, or December 1st, I should say, will I no longer have access to the town's internet? You'll be cutting me off?
We will be, yes, sir.
Oh, good, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. When I was going through the policy and you have records, specific areas to put records in, for example, complaint reports, D22, will that be for every department, would be 22, or each department will have their own complaint department where they're going to save their emails or stuff, such?
So emails would be,
Archive stuff.
yeah, the archives will be together, so they aren't going to be merged, but each person will have a location that will be saved. I apologize if that hasn't answered your question, though.
I think it does. I'm just wondering for staff purposes only, when they have an email come through, say, this happened 3 years ago, and they've been following this series of emails, and they have a place to put that so they can bring it all back up again, or is that access for everybody, or just that department?
No, that'll, through your worship, the answer is, if it's staying within their Outlook, then it will still be private to them. It won't be commonly available. If it's being moved to an official record, that will most likely end up in a common location such as Laserfish, so it would be searchable by anybody who would have permissions to that section. So if it's commonly available, it'll be available common. If it's something specific to that department or a certain permission level, then it would only be to that group.
Okay. Lisa, are you next? Or Andrew?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mayor Terziano. I'm going to be speaking to the electronic monitoring policy. So this policy is in response to a legislation change, which requires us to adopt an electronic monitoring policy. And the policy itself, the intent of the policy is to provide and communicate the company's intent to monitor its employees. So it is a policy just to say, here are some of the things that we have in place, and this is how it may or may not affect your monitoring. So one of them might be like our GPS, right, on our vehicles. Or there's some antivirus malware that we have that may provide some form of monitoring. The information's that we have, so within the policy we have an appendices
And there's 3 types of monitoring that we do. So there's active monitoring, passive monitoring, and system monitoring, and those are explained in the policy as well. Yeah, if there's any questions, I can certainly answer them for you.
Questions? Counselor Stone?
Thank you. So, this is regarding the personal electronic equipment monitoring, and I presume it's for emails and texting as well. But it says in here that data collection will occur when personal equipment is used on our network, presumably the Wi-Fi here, and the town reserves the right to inspect the personal device, remotely wipe from personal electronic devices. I think that's gone too far and a little bit big brotherish.
Okay, through you, Councillor Stone, I think I'm going to rely on, I'm going to put Ian on the spot and see what he...
So as long as you're on our network and attached to our network, by default, you will be flowing through our firewall. And as a result, all of that traffic is inspected. The firewall does not notice or care whether it's a personal device or whether it is a corporate device. It is going to scan and assess and make decisions on that traffic. So that's not something that we control. If you are connected to, say, the public network in the town, then we can distinguish that traffic from corporate. But as per our acceptable use policy that we just discussed, the personal information or personal devices should not be on our network. But we're making sure that people are aware that if they connect it to the network, it will be assessed and monitored, that traffic, and action may be taken on that, specifically automatic action by the firewalls and things like that. If it sees malware, if it sees, there's items we can get into are technically called data loss prevention, so it can be assessing to see if, say, personal private information is leaving or Visa cards are leaving. It can actually delete that content on the fly. So from the purposes of this policy, the answer is if it's on our network, we are monitoring it, and we are assessing it, and we are logging that.
All right, I'm still can't live with that, so.
Well, I think, further to that question, and I know, Andrew, you haven't gone through the email yet, but I think it's all going to be quite similar. I agree. I get we need to keep our network safe from trolls and all those things out there in the internet world, but this is starting to feel a little bit far-reaching, and my question is, how do staff actually feel like this? Has this been put before the staff at the town of Huntsville? And have they said we're okay with this? And do they have any choice but to say we're okay with this? And I guess I'll probably go to the CAO for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I can assure you that lots of discussions have taken place with respect to these policies. There has been a lot that has changed, right from staff being able to use corporate devices for personal and work-related, because there's 2 sides to the phone, so that was permitted under our old system. But we have taken the advice of our staff, who feel that's in the corporation's best interest to protect the information, that we take these efforts. And I know as Ms. Smith had indicated, that one of them is legislated. We have to have the monitoring policy passed ASAP. So I'm sure that staff are feeling not 100% comfortable with the possibility that if their personal devices were to log in through our network, that IT could actually intervene and look at that. But again, and perhaps Ian can provide clarification, but we do have different access points. So we have the public network, we have private, we have a hotspot that you can go through. I believe what Ian is referring to is the actual town system, if you're logging through that. So sometimes decisions have to be made that's in the corporation's best interest, and I trust that staff have recommended to us just that these efforts need to be taken in order to protect the municipality. So are we happy? Perhaps not, but we do need to do what's in the corporation's best interest.
And there's a few more questions, and I guess just as follow-up, because I'm not sure you answered the question I had. Is staff aware, and are they okay with this? I mean, I get that you're saying our staff says we have to do this. Is everybody who works at the town of Huntsville and uses their devices aware that if council passes this policy, they're in for a different day?
So if I may defer to Ian, he can respond.
Thank you. Through your worship, I did want to clarify the point, and I think it might clarify the table. When we talk about personal devices and the policy, and I was just rereading it to make sure I understood the words again, that is in a scenario where somebody does a bring their own device to work policy. So if somebody has chosen to say, I wish to use my own personal phone at work, but I'm going to attach it, to the corporate plan. In that scenario, we have the ability to review and or delete it because it's been authorized to be on the network, and that's just part of that policy. We don't have the ability to necessarily only delete our portion, so we're saying it could be deleted for their all. But that is only under this scenario where someone is bringing their own phone into work, they have agreed with the policy at the town, then our email accounts will be added onto that phone for the purposes of them to use that phone. So that's the scenario. So if it is truly your personal phone, and you just happen to have it in your pocket, we don't have insight to delete and or format that phone. But my other point to the point was, if you're on our network, yes, it's still being monitored, but we don't have the ability to reach in and delete that device. And that's phones, computers, tablets, everything would fall under that policy. I hope that clarifies that a little bit more on your discussion.
Councillor Withy?
No, thank you. You fooled me there because you were looking over there when you said
Sorry.
I'm over here. A couple things. So so there is policy set at provincial levels on this stuff, and I know from my business, it's not mandatory. We can choose to or not to. Like I've got a bunch of offices in my computer, and I don't have the time or the inclination to worry about somebody doing anything. Plus, they're all good people, so anyways, but, so I do find, I agree with Councillor Stone about this. I don't know the necessity of it. One of the things, though, that popped out at me, a couple things, actually, if I might. First one, it says, personal electronic equipment in the second paragraph. The town reserves the right to inspect personal devices. So is there going to be some sort of agreement that everybody signs off on to say that they agree with this policy, or is it just, this is the policy and we reserve the right, therefore, give me that?
Lisa?
Through you, it is a mandatory policy that we need to put in place.
Mandatory from whom?
From the province, the legislation.
Okay.
So, we have no choice in the matter. I guess probably to maybe clarify, it's a policy, the intent of the policy is for us to say to staff, here are the areas that we may be monitoring you. Not sitting and monitoring you, but here's the equipment that we have or the software we have in place, because we need to protect the interests of the corporation from a security perspective, that those types of software, could see your information, right? But I think Ian's probably better to speak to that than I am, certainly. And we have reviewed the policy not only with senior leadership, but we had a full discussion at our leadership team meeting, so that would include most of the managers within the corporation. And we reviewed the policy. We gave them, certainly a few months to review it and digest it. We had the meeting, we had some questions and things like that, but the consensus was that leadership team was good with the policy. So I'm making the assumption as well that the directors and the managers would have gone back to their staff to say this is what's coming forward, and have that conversation with them. So certainly with what Ian was saying, that won't be the norm. We're not sitting here monitoring staff. We have no time for that. But this is in the process of of our security, this may be some of the things that might be monitoring. If that
Follow-up?
makes any clarification.
Yeah, moving on. I noticed under passive monitoring, and I understand the locations that are listed there, and I understand the distinction between Medill and those locations, but I was wondering why Medill wasn't included.
So from what I understand through you, Mayor Terziano, Medill does not have any cameras at their location. That is what we've been told.
Oh, I thought they had
Was at
cameras.
one point.
And
There was
we
at-
talked about upgrading them at one
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, currently there isn't, from what I understand.
Should we get some?
Who is next? Counselor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, your worship. I was going to say, it is mandatory for employees, or an employer who has 25 or more employees, Tim, so I think that's why you're covered. So yes, our work has done this as well at my other job, and yes, we have the 2 phones, and I think it used to be considered a perk that you could use your work phone as your personal phone, and in a lot of cases now, due to these policies, it is kind of being accepted that people get their own personal phone because the work phone could be monitored now, and that is not just in this sector, in a lot of other sectors going forward. So that's sort of the option, or that is the purpose, to let people know, and staff are, I'm assured, aware that that is going to be the option. I guess for me, I'm wondering, am I an employee of the town, and my personal devices that we're using for council, are they on which network are they on, and are they monitored? Yes, I am.
Lisa?
I didn't know what website
Ian?
to go to.
I think I'll refer to Ian on this one.
Ian?
Through your worship, so the answer is, as long as you're not on the corporate network, so that would be the inside or outside listed ones, and you're on the public network, then we are monitoring for antivirus. We are monitoring for a few of those items, but we are not any more aggressive than that on that.
Deputy Mayor Alcock was next. I see you.
Thank you, your worship. I think a couple of my questions have been answered. And the primary one, and I think I'm throwing this to Ian, is the impetus or the catalyst for all of this is to make sure that our system is extremely secure because of all of the hacking that has happened, and it's cost the municipalities a bunch of money in order to pay them off. And that, am I right? That's where this is the origin of this. And so it does seem heavy-handed, but am I right? Is that the catalyst?
Through your worship, I believe this policy specifically is driven by an act request to do it.
Request, yeah.
But certainly a lot of the activities that are going on here are already occurring. We're just documenting them. And yes, they are driven by protecting ourselves from malware. It's protecting ourselves from ransomware.
Right.
It's making sure we isolate that and segment our data so that if there is a problem, we can minimize that loss
Right.
and minimize our expenses of recovery.
Right, okay, so thank you, that was my first part. And then the second, I think, and this is a question, the district has already implemented this, or are they also in the process of doing, sort of updating their policy with respect to this?
To your worship, I do not know
Okay.
where the district stands on this particular
Okay.
policy or ones like this.
For some reason, I thought they had, but I could be wrong.
Through you, Mayor Terziano, there was a deadline for the policy to be implemented. Unfortunately, some of the legislation details didn't come out until later, and then with the election and not having a meeting, this was the first opportunity we could bring it to the table. So I would assume that they have theirs adopted already.
Okay, thanks very much.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. I guess through to Ian. When we say monitoring, really we have software and programs that are searching for malicious stuff that is contained in emails or websites being visited. No one's physically sitting there looking at people and their actions on their computer. You'll get a report and it said, there was some malware information or some complications that need to be attended to. So you get those reports and then you take action, correct?
Through your worship. So yes, that's exactly the situation. So that's why we decided to break this down into the 3 categories. Where there is active monitoring, where specifically if there is a malware on the environment, somebody from my team will get an email from the system to say, hey, we have an active problem, please go attend to it right away. So that's where that section is. We have passive monitoring to say that if you're sending certain websites, it will be logged. Nobody's notified of it, nobody goes to look for it. However, if for some reason somebody wished to get that information, it is available to find. And then the last one with the system is definitely, as you suggested, it's all automated. So it's a computer system that literally processes the data, passes it along. It may or may not even log that information, but it does jump in and take a look at it. So we wanted to be as open and transparent as possible to say it is happening. But in that case, nobody may even be able to look back and say that it did happen, but it could be modified and changed on the fly. So we are putting it in here for notice.
Follow-up?
Thanks again. So I guess we've made staff and council and everyone aware that if they're on particular access points, that this will happen with their personal devices. Have we also made them aware that there is access that doesn't happen? Yes? Someone? Anyone? Bueller?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think to your point, Councillor Fitzgerald, yeah, so staff will be made aware that when if the policy is approved by council, that, if something happens, that we will have the ability to go in as per the policy and address the situation. And the second part of your question, I'm not so sure I was clear on.
Have we made staff aware of an access point where it's not monitored for their personal devices? So they do have that freedom of use that isn't a corporate.
Right, so I believe, as Mr. Parker had indicated, as long as they're not going through the network and they're utilizing their personal devices, then that wouldn't be triggered. But again, I would refer to Mr. Parker to clarify that, please.
I think the question, though, is has staff been made aware that there's a way for them to use their devices without being monitored?
So we certainly can make that part of the implementation of the policy, and I would assume that that's what would have happened is once the policy is approved by council, then staff will do the implementation, and they'll make sure that that information is provided. And if Mr. Parker has to add something.
Thank you.
Through your worship, so to be clear, we won't be providing a network that provides absolutely unfettered access to the internet that is completely untouched. We provide a public access, which allows you access to email, allows you to stream, allows you to get on your email, but nonetheless, there are still some limitations on that. So again, if we see viruses moving across that network, we will stop it. If we see pornography, things like that, certain websites being accessed, that will be stopped. But beyond that, it is a less aggressive look and see. So where there may be certain categories that might be blocked for staff, on the public side that may not be, but certainly there are some of the more extreme elements are blocked still on that network. We still are under care and control of that data. We still have a single egress for our internet connection, so we still have to put a certain amount of care and attention to that data that leaves our environment, whether that is from public or from staff. So that's always in place. So we don't have an absolutely untouched, but that's as light as it gets, and that's our public network.
If it's the same topic, I'll let you have one more go at it because Councillor Thompson's waiting patiently.
Sorry, Councillor Thompson. So I guess this troubles me a little bit because I know a lot of people in the outlying areas rely on the community halls for internet. To know that they really don't have any privacy there, or even here. They come into town, library, here, wherever. There's no assurance of privacy, and I don't think we're informing them that they have no privacy. So it troubles me a little bit. How do we determine, or how do we get something like that, an access point where people do have privacy? Because I think that the public deserves that.
Ian?
Through your worship, I guess I'd like to answer that in two parts. First part is, if there's an expectation of privacy on any publicly available internet, no matter where you go, whether that's a McDonald's, a Starbucks, Tim Hortons, I would never trust those as both secure and or private from that perspective. And accessing fully unfettered internet from those locations is unlikely to be in place. And it's very likely that they have some of the same things that we're talking about to do some basic morality items and some basic security items within their networks. So from that perspective, I think we aren't doing anything beyond what many organizations will do in that scenario. In fact, a lot of organizations will just cut public off completely, such that it doesn't exist. So the other item is, yes, we potentially could provide a dedicated access points or dedicated locations based on cost and availability, obviously. But at the same time, we still feed our connection out to Lakeland and out to other providers. And there's no guarantee that they aren't also providing some level of filtering and or some level of control on it. So again, there's still going to be a limitation there that's beyond our control.
Councillor Thompson, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I guess ultimately, this really boils down to a security issue and your concerns with regards to that, right? I think we're all aware, and we've heard of different municipalities that have been hijacked by trolls and so on and so forth, and then held to ransom. And so is this sort of the intention of this particular legislation then would be to not necessarily totally prevent that, but at least make it a lot tougher for someone, some nefarious individual out there to access our town records and so on? Is this sort of the purpose behind this, Ian?
Through your worship, I would actually see this as slightly different. This is a reaction to the steps that we've had to take to protect that environment. So to protect and provide security, we've had to become tighter. We've had to look at content. We've had to look at what's happening. But as a result, there has been an invasion of privacy to a certain extent. So I believe that this policy is driven out of that because that the privacy has been weakened, to make sure that our staff and people on our network are aware that these privacy components have been reduced to a certain extent, and to make sure that people are aware of that. And as a separate item, certainly over during pandemic, there was a number of companies that did work from home who are getting very, very aggressive in the sense that there was software on people's machines. It was doing screen captures of their machines. It was doing video captures from their monitors. It was assessing how much they were typing, how often they were typing, things like that were very, very invasive. And I think that may also have been part of the impetus to push this type of policy. This is something that the town is nowhere near. We have nothing like that. There's no plans to ever get into anything that aggressive.
Okay, Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to circle back to Councillor Schumacher about carrying 2 phones. So if key personnel now are now carrying 2 phones with them, do we have something in place that they take their phone home with them after hours or on weekends, so that if a councillor has to get hold of someone outside the normal working hours, that we can? Or is there anything in place that they can just leave it on their desk and go home
Would you
and
like
come
to
back on
tackle
Monday?
that one? We're actually not allowed to contact them after 4:30. You missed that policy.
So through your worship, there is the right to disconnect policy, that is true, which council just passed, I believe it was a few months ago, that just spoke to being respectful of staff's working hours. Having said that, there are certainly key positions that are to some degree expected to be able to be accessed pretty much, in a reasonable time period. To your point, there are some positions that could physically leave their work phone on their desk on a Friday and pick it up again when they're back Monday morning. There are other positions, such as mine, that it would not be feasible to do that. However, there are the 2 phones now, which I do now have. And the question is, if you picked up, I did this on the weekend, I picked up the wrong phone and went, oh, I didn't bring my work phone. So there's a little bit of confusion there. So I think it's certainly something that we need to work around, but council needs to know that certainly there are some positions that they could technically leave their phone at home, or sorry, at work and not take it home. Where before, when we had the option of the personal side and the work side, they always had that phone with them, so you had access to them 24/7, which again is slightly against the right to disconnect policy. But that's a true fact, that they could leave it.
Okay. Andrew, we haven't forgotten about you. We're going to move on to the third part of this resolution. You might get away with no questions, so go ahead.
We'll see. Thank you. So the purpose of the email management policy is to achieve a few things, among which just sets basic parameters for when staff need to keep and maintain email communications, i.e. to say to complete a record, say for like a planning application, there's communication with the applicant and members of the public. It's just encouraging staff to make sure that those communications actually go with the application, so the whole context of that record is in one place, searchable and accessible. The second part of it is, should staff do nothing with that particular slate of email, there is now a hard cap of retention on those emails set at 4 years. So if you've done absolutely nothing with that email in 4 years, the system will just automatically delete it for you. And just in line with the other two policies, this is more of a somewhat of a security risk management measure, because the more items you have in these inbox, the greater the risk of, say, if something does happen, the greater information that's in those files, the more exposure we have in case there is a security breach of some sort. So this is a way to, one, to help staff file their items correctly in appropriate repositories, and also to minimize the amount of information that may be compromised in the event something does happen. And if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Further questions? Can I ask how long you're going to keep my 20,000 emails that I've got for the last 3 years on your system? Just so I know when I'm free and clear.
So as the mayor of the town of Huntsville, you are out of the 9 here, you are the only employee at this table. So it would just essentially be 4 years from the day of your last day in office, and at some point in time it will be removed.
Okay. Councillor Armour, did you have a question?
Just a quick one, thank you, Your Worship. Just that when this takes effect, if this passes tonight, will there be a communique to all staff, and there will be an application, a date happening 6 weeks from now or 2 months from now before it actually comes into place?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when they are adopted, that's certainly when we're going to put that out and have them on our near circle and circulate them and educate on those policies. So, yep.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you. Is there an oversight for staff, IT staff, on what's collected and what they've looked at, what they've dealt with, or are we just hoping they use it appropriately? No offense, I'm just looking for some oversight.
Through your worship, which specific item are you looking at when you talk oversight, specifically tied to this policy and email?
Emails, texts, also monitoring personal devices. Who's checking up on you?
I'll admit that is one of the challenges that we have, watching the watchers and all that. So answering your first question, the emails, that's all automated. So that'll be, nobody's going to be assessing them directly. That'll just be an automated process within the mail storage, that it will be migrated away from your mail account into your archive at that 1 year mark. And at that, between the 2 and 4 years, it'll stay on the system, and on its 4th year, it will be deleted automatically. So that's no involvement from an IT perspective or any other departments. The records management team may have the ability to go in and say, for some reason, it needs to be held. Maybe there's a legal hold or something like that coming up. But outside of that, that is all automated and unmonitored. From that perspective, we just get a record to say it was done. Or if there was a problem in the deletion, we would get a notification that there was an issue to deal with. For everything else, as I said, unfortunately, there isn't an oversight other than through standard management procedures, through my director and through senior management team. If there's an issue or concern with the way I'm doing my job, they can certainly bring that to me and to my team. Unfortunately, it's I don't have a perfect answer for you there to do that, to provide you that. But everything is logged. When we log into systems, it's there. If we delete files, it's there. So that information is available if somebody was to request it. We have access or remote access. There's ways to collect some of that information as necessary, and including from outside of our department if necessary.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ian. With regards to Outlook, the town's Outlook, as of December 1st, I will no longer have access to that. Is that true? Okay, that's good. So in terms of emails that I got on my personal Outlook, okay, that had to do with town business, is there any obligation on us lesser plebes with regards to maintaining those over a certain period of time?
So through your worship, I would say, well, so you're not an employee of the municipality. You just happen to have email through, say, an email account that happens to lie within the corporation. And because of that, the retention for that is, I believe, the end of the term of council, which I believe is coming up, plus an additional 4 years. And this is actually consistent with most of the records that we keep with regards to council in general, aside from the mayor. So if you haven't done something with that, it is still technically on our system for 4 years from December 1st. And if you choose not to do anything, will just go away in 2026.
Ian, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, through your worship, I wanted to correct Andrew. I apologize for this, but for councillor emails that are hosted on the Office 365 environment, the retention period on that is 0 days. So on as your last day of committee or on council, all emails there will be disposed of at that time. If you are continuing on, they'll be carried into the new system.
Apologies.
Okay, we beat this one to death. If you remember the resolution, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. And on that note, with what we've done to staff, does anybody want to see the lovely cake they've got in council for thank you for your service? All right, I guess we'll keep going. We are into 8.6, the winter product development. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Wiebe, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that staff be directed to proceed with the current agreement and collect operational costs of $6,000 payable from the Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce for the 2022-23 season, including snow plowing at MHP outdoor 600-meter light trail loop, cost approximately $5,000. Hydro and Eclipse Walk with Light at Muskoka Heritage Place, estimate at $1,000, and further that staff bring forward the required staffing resources to support this initiative on an ongoing basis as a new level of service and four-season destination through the 2023 budget process for consideration by the Budget Working Group and Council. Simone.
Good evening. I'd like to first say that so far we don't have any snow, thanks Tarmo. And secondly, that the Eclipse event at MHP is opening this Friday at 6 o'clock. It will be open until March 18th. And at this point, the Chamber would like to request that the snowplow trail and the hydro costs not be billed back to the Chamber. And that is what I'm here to answer questions on tonight.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Simone. Simone, is this the trail up at the Lions Lookout soccer field?
No,
No?
through you, Mayor Terziano. No, this is actually through the MHP Village.
And so there's a loop through there, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, of course, for Eclipse.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you, Simone. I have a resolution moved by Counselor Thompson, seconded by Counselor Weed. Be it resolved that council approve the amendment to sign bylaw 2009-100 as attached to Report Development 2022-166, and further that the final bylaw be forwarded to the next council meeting for adoption. And I think Chris isn't here. Kirsten, you're taking this one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Terziano. The report's very straightforward. The BIA asked that council consider this, and so we put it into a bylaw for approval.
Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Oh. Okay, we are at the sidewalk winter maintenance. I have a resolution moved by Counselor Stone, seconded by Counselor Thompson. Be it resolved that staff be directed to continue existing winter sidewalk maintenance practices on the downtown section of Main Street. And further, that council direct staff to work with the District of Muskoka to increase the frequency of snowbank removal along the curbs of downtown Main Street. And further, that council authorize increased winter operating expenditures to facilitate increased frequency of snowbank removal along the curbs of downtown Main Street to an annual maximum of $10,000 funded by the town and approved by the district to be included in the 2023 town budget. And further, that council direct staff to develop a winter sidewalk maintenance service level commitment for council's consideration. I have a motion to amend. Do you want me to read that before you start? Moved by Counselor Stone, seconded by Counselor Thompson. Be it resolved that the following be added to the end of the motion, and further that staff be directed to review and update bylaw 96-102 to reflect the current and future practices. Now, Tarmo, go ahead.
So this, the history of this comes as a BIA motion to request additional work be done to clear snow from the sidewalks in the downtown, particularly in the areas where the sidewalk has been widened. And just the quick evaluation, looking at our current resourcing and the time it takes to plow the entire town with our existing equipment and staffing levels, that we're recommending that we continue our current practices and then go from there. Obviously looking at options for the future in terms of coming up with that sidewalk maintenance service level to be considered by council.
Questions? Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Worship. Tarmo, question, because this came up last winter. I was speaking with one of your staff about the sidewalk plowing, and now that the sidewalks have been all widened, I was wondering why there was just a path, because it created issues for people. You know how in the past when they were narrow, people would park and then there'd be a little area where the snowbank, or people would have to dig out sort of pathways through the snowbank. And I was wondering why the snow wasn't removed from the widened area of the sidewalks, and the answer I got was that they're designed for snow storage. And I think that, I understand where you're saying here that it says 1 meter after an event, but I think that I would prefer to see the whole sidewalk cleared as much as possible. Of course, there's rocks and things you got to be careful of, but we've gone to all the trouble of building these nice wide sidewalks, and just to go back to a lane in the winter, it doesn't make sense to me, and it looks horrible, because all of a sudden you've got these, not just a bank where the snow on the narrow sidewalks was, but you've got these huge mounds of snow that are, this high and as big, as wide as a sidewalk. It looks horrible. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the next council's going to do budget deliberations, but I would suggest perhaps looking at taking care of that, because it really was not a great look last winter, especially after all the money put into the project. And it also wasn't great for pedestrians who were trying to, I know they were crossing not at crosswalks, but they often do try to get through those things to cross the road. And if there's a snow pile the size of this council ring here, it was unbelievable watching people struggling through that. So that would be my suggestion. I didn't see anything sort of specific to snow storage on the widened sidewalks, but that's what I heard last winter when I brought up the question.
So, Tarmo, your report in this resolution is saying, though, that no significant changes to the way we do snow removal on Main Street in this current winter, but that you're going to study it going further.
That's correct, Your Worship. What I would add to that, though, is that it's not a 1 meter width. I want to be very clear that the snow plows themselves, it's 2 snow plow widths, which when you look at the width of the sidewalk plows, they're over 4 feet wide. So we're talking about an 8-foot sweep along Main Street that is significantly wider than the 1 meter minimum requirement under the minimum maintenance standards.
Councillor Stone?
Thanks. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the BIA has talked about, so this speaks to increasing the frequency of removing the snowbanks. So the need for those cutouts may not be as necessary, but the BIA also did discuss with Tarmo and his team about the cutouts, where cars park, and now they've got this giant bank to climb. The banks will be gone more often now, but hopefully discussing the service level, we can talk about cutouts when the banks are still there. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, yes. The objective is to do more wherever we can, but it's not to tie the team to having to do more if we can't. If we get back-to-back snow events, multiple events, things like that, and really with multiple snowbank, if we're clearing the snowbanks more frequently, then it should become less of an issue.
Councillor Schumacher?
Through you, Your Worship, I wanted to thank you for the clarification, because I know the 1 meter is not an adequate turning radius for a wheelchair from accessibility standards. As we know, it needs to be at least a 3 meter turning radius, so I appreciate that. Thanks.
Just one question, and I realize that there's no easy answer with our new Main Street. Snow is plowed off of the road and onto the sidewalk. But we did, a number of years ago, purchase the equipment to remove snowbanks, and we actually do it for the district and bill it back to them for their 2 times. So the fact that we have that equipment and have been doing it for a number of years suggests to me that we should have the resources in place and the equipment in place to do this, and it should be less of a budgetary concern for 2023 because we've been doing it for a few years. And I guess my question is, why all of a sudden can we not do it? I mean, we've been doing Burnell Road for the district and billing it back. So we've had resources and equipment to do the work. We've been doing Florence Street. We've been doing streets all over town.
I don't have the full answer there, Your Worship. What I would suggest is that this is looking at more frequently and potentially incurring additional staffing costs is where we would be, where the additional costs are. You're correct in saying that we've purchased the equipment for this purpose.
I guess I'm just suggesting that if we can clear Burnell Road for the district, we could use our own equipment and own staff to clear our road where we need it to be cleared without it being a budgetary issue. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. Just I agree we should be able to do it, but I guess it all depends on the snow event itself, how much snow we actually have, and how much we're dealing with. I know in the past where we didn't have as much snow and we had our crews on at nighttime, they would be sent out to do certain parking lots, clean Main Street, et cetera, keep it clean. So I think it's just based on how much snow we get and the staff ability, right, to move the snow. So I think watching it this year just to see, I think it's going to be different every year. I don't know if we can actually put a number on it.
Yeah. We've had a lucky November so far, so.
Hey, now. Careful.
Madam CEO?
Thank you, Worship. So with respect to past practices, I know that reallocation of resources, to Councillor Ummer's point, have taken place. So in the past, if we had the resources that were able to do those extras, then we did. So it would depend on snow accumulation and other duties that were required. So I know that the previous director, because Director Ukevi was not here for the last winter season, had reallocated those resources based on availability. So we might have been able to do additional snow removal. But if we have a full-fledged snow event on a regular basis, I think would be very taxing on our staff to carry out those extra functions. So this year will be interesting to see how that goes, to see how much we could potentially reallocate. So that's why we were able to do it in the past.
Yeah, I think it was less of a reallocation than we actually had overnight shifts on, and that was their job, to remove parking lot snow, and then when it didn't snow, then they had lots of extra time. So we did have shifts, so it's not a brand-new rodeo. All in favor of the amendment? And that carries. And all in favor of the main motion as amended? And that carries. Okay. All right, this one is this is Kent Park winter maintenance. So I've got a few motions again. So I'll read the first one, moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that council direct staff to retain a contractor to be responsible for winter maintenance activities required to make Kent Park accessible to the public. And further, that council direct staff to fund the contracted work through the working fund reserve for 2022 at an estimated cost of $10,000 for 2022. And further, that council direct staff to determine the impact for 2023 and include this cost estimate in the 2023 draft budget. And I have an amendment moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the second paragraph be struck out and replaced with, and further, that council direct staff to fund the contracted work through operational savings in 2022, with the remainder to be funded from the working funds reserve at an estimated cost of $10,000 for 2022. Tarmo?
So this is, again, an increased service level, increased workload. It's nice to conceptualize the pushing of a snowplow right through one of the sidewalk plows right through Kent Park. However, that's not possible because of the underlay under the interlocking stone or the paver stones. If we were to put the sidewalk plow through there, the weight of the sidewalk plow would almost invariably shift the paver stones, cause heaving, cause significant damage, and the more passes we do, the more likely it is we knock paver stones out of there. So, bottom line, this is a manual process that would require snow blowers and shovels, and just to reallocate staff resources to that process, we just, with 5 full-time for the entire town, we don't have that. So the suggestion is to go with contracted services.
Questions, Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. You mentioned a couple times in your report about insurance, and you're not going to find a contractor to do that job, I can tell you right now. It's impossible. I think that you would be better off looking at some sort of budget deviation to hire people to do it, because it's just, the market is shut right down for snowplowers. Unless you're going to budget $1 million so they can pay their insurance bill, which will still net them probably only 10 grand. It's really bad. So I don't know, I mean, this motion asking for 10 grand, I mean, that's, I don't know where that's not going to get you. You've estimated a cost, but there's no way of knowing what it would be, because I can just give you a quick example. I had a client that paid 10 grand in insurance doing snow plowing 2 years ago, and last year the renewal was over 100. So 10 grand isn't gonna get you anywhere, I can tell you right now. So,
Through your worship, we have done a preliminary scan of the market, and only the very large companies have the capacity to do, have the insurance capacity to do this. However, they don't have the staffing capacity to do this. And the smaller business owners can't carry that insurance is the quick answer.
true, if I may, and the big guys aren't, they're more concerned with Walmart parking lot and places like that. They're not gonna piddle around in Kent Park, I can tell you that too, so.
Counselor Thompson?
Yes, Your Worship, well, I'll be out of work as of November 30th, so
Hey, you know?
there's a couple of us that maybe,
We'll form a
my
company.
insurance is, I'll go to Councillor Withy to get insurance. The question I have, with regards to the cost, the 10,000, Carmo, is that, it says for 2022, but that's not for the entire season then?
Through your worship, that's correct. It's not for the entire season, that's for the balance of the calendar year 2022 to December 31st.
So if perchance you do find someone to do this job, then the 10,000 would be just until December 31st then?
That's correct.
I see, okay, thank you.
Counselor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Tarmo. I'm curious, Tarmo, when Kent Park was built, I'm assuming it was built for winter maintenance, or will, like, it's just plowing it and pushing the frost down and it's gonna destroy those interlocking bricks come this spring and then cost us thousands of dollars to correct them again? I'm just wondering if it's designed for winter maintenance.
Through you, your worship, couple points there. First one about the frost. Actually packing down the snow on top protects frost from going into the ground. It provides a preventative layer as opposed to clearing the stones completely, which would allow frost to sink in and create major heave. That's based on discussions with our engineering staff. The second part, in terms of the design, it was not designed necessarily for winter purposes, owing to the fact that practice in the town has not been to maintain town parks.
Counselor Schumacher?
Through you, your worship, yeah. So I'm assuming it's gonna be similar to what happened in Bracebridge when they redesigned their sidewalks and they had that lovely interlocking brick in between all of the crosswalks. And then the plows come along and totally, after winter, it's done and dissipated, right? And so they had to repave that whole entire intersections. They looked nice when that happened, but yeah. To Councillor Withy's point, good luck in finding a contractor. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, however many others of you are getting calls from private roads because they're also having issues with contractors to do plowing because of insurance issues this year.
So, Tarmo, I guess we have a resolution in front of us to approve going out and hiring a contractor, and yet you just said that the big contractors that can afford the insurance don't have the staff, and the contractors who might have staff can't get the insurance. So why are we approving a resolution that says we're going to clear Kent Park when we are sitting here saying we don't think we can actually do it?
Thank you, Worship. So staff have worked really hard on this issue with our Chamber of Commerce as well, the BIA, because we know that there's certainly a desire to have the space open. As Director Ukivi said, it's not our standard practice to maintain parks in the winter. Was never on the radar, was never planned because we don't do it. We do see a desire to make this work. So through conversations with the Chamber of Commerce, it was identified that the Executive Director thought that she actually had some individuals that she could connect us with. So the first attempt, as you see in the report, there are options just to go out and hire staff, and we don't know how many times it needs to be plowed. We're working on more of a corporate need, including the Lions Lookout Field, maintaining Kent Park. We're lacking resources and facilities, so we're trying to strategically plan for the 23 budget, which will address us in future years, what our overall need is. So we felt it might have been a little reactionary to just say, let's just hire staff to do this when we're actually trying to look at a very educated, well-informed plan moving forward. Having said that, in discussions with the Chamber of Commerce, there was some indication that they would be able to provide us with some individuals. So that is why we took this approach. What we could do, if council wishes to do so, is we could throw a few options in there. If we're not successful with the contractor right away, that we actually put money in there for hiring staff. And I would have to go to Director Ukivi to see if, do we have time to hire staff now to maintain this area? So the resolution could be twofold. If we can't find a contractor, we're hiring somebody to do it. And then we could potentially figure it out from there, just for this winter season.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. It seems to me that salary, wages, and benefit is probably, through an employee, is the most likelihood of having this accomplished. From the discussions we've had about snow and maintenance and paths and everything, I think it's probably warranted that we do have someone that can fill that role. If we can find someone, that's another issue as well. But it certainly negates the insurance requirement and high cost of snow removal. So I would like to see something come back with an SWB approach and costing solutions in that manner.
I think, yeah, I mean, and, you know, whatever it takes to get it done, I guess, but the reason I raise this question is this council's about to tell the BIA they can put up a Christmas tree and put up an arch, and we're gonna maintain the park. And what I keep hearing around the table is, we're not sure we can find anybody to maintain the park. So are you confident that we can maintain the park?
I get the pressure.
No, but
Brian needs a job.
So what I will say is that we are having challenges finding staff for our regular operations complement, be it operators on the roads for plow operators, or even for the seasonal sidewalk maintenance, the one additional person that we pick up for that. We're having a lot of challenging recruiting and finding and retaining people, quite frankly. So I don't know the answer to this.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, but perhaps you'd like to weigh in on council making any more promises to do things that we might not be able to do, so. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Worship. So one thing, once this matter's decided, if we get to the resolution with respect to the BIA, it could say that it's pending, that we have the adequate resources to maintain the park. So you can make a commitment in principle, but it will be pending whether we are able to maintain Kent Park or not.
And Your Worship, to add to the discussion, based on the previous discussion for Main Street, the service level, a view to speak to Madam CAO's point as well, to actually develop a strategy, a strategic approach, a service level standard for the town and expectations, and then ensuring adequate resourcing to be able to carry through that service level is probably a better long-term approach than and that would be my recommendation.
Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. You're freaking me out by not looking at me when you say my name. I think you're so is the BIA, are they covered under the town's insurance policy because they're a committee of council?
Madam CEO?
Through your worship, so the BIA technically is the town, so we just have to remember that whatever activities the BIA do, they are covered under the town's insurance policy.
So what if the BIA assembled a crew of BIA members to do it themselves? They want their lights, they want their stuff, so.
If I may, Madam Mayor. So the issue, I guess, with that is again, the town's insurance policy is covering the BIA. So the question is that something that the town council is willing to move forward with, potentially with someone who's volunteered to do? So I think liability is popping into my head. I can see Julia looking at me
You're
over
speaking
here.
my language, but.
I know.
But I think if you paid them a nominal amount then therefore they're employees in a sort of fashion. I'm just, if I put my insurance hat on, I think that that works, actually.
So if I may, Your Worship, it's not just maintaining the park in order for the BIA to have their light display. It's maintaining the park for future rentals. We already have the BIA who's contacted us about, again, the ice sculptures that they want to put in the park in the February. We also have others that could utilize the space that we're aware of that are wanting to rent it as a park permit. So we as the town of Huntsville that own that location, would you be comfortable having a member of the BIA maintain that?
Well, if I may, they could be supervised to bring it to make sure it's the standards. I mean, people are going to walk through it anyway, I mean, the public, right? So whether somebody rents it or whatever, people are still traipsing around there. And if they slip and fall, they're going to sue the town. And if we have standards to maintain things, then I think the BIA, I think that covers it. I would say that covers it, and I'd be happy to talk to the underwriter about it.
I think we're getting into operations here now. If we want to pass a resolution to say, you know, you guys figure out a way to do Kent Park, this resolution addresses the finances, and operationally, you'll have to address how to do it or how it can't be done. Right, that's the final motion. So what I have on the table now is the amendment, which is just only taking it from working funds if there's no budget left. So all in favor of the amendment? And that carries. And then the main motion as amended, which is basically just a financial commitment to do the job. Councillor Farmer?
Thank you, Worship. So we're not committing to actually doing it. We're only committing that if we find a way that we would fund doing it.
Yeah, well, this basically says where the funds will come from.
Right.
What
we're
we
not
might,
actually
what we might need to do is fine tune the commitment to the BIA when we get to that. But this just outlines the financial commitment to doing the job. If they end up without being able to find contractors or staff or however they do it operationally, that's not part of this motion. Well, I don't think it's technically makes any difference. It's an operational thing. The CAO would like to change the motion to retain a contractor to retain a contractor or hire staff. Does anybody want to move that amendment? Can we do two amendments? Can we do two amendments? Councillor Stone and Councillor Thompson? Sure. Yeah.
So on the amendment?
On the amendment, yeah.
Amendment to add or hire staff?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do the amendment, all in favor of the amendment?
So all in favor of the amendment to add hire staff? That carries. And then all in favor of the main motion as amended twice? And that carries. Maybe it won't snow till January. Oh, we're at bylaws. Who's knocking? I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2022-124 to 2022-132 inclusive be reported and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed the 7th day of November 2022. And those bylaws are posted and in your agenda package. Questions? All in favor? That carries. And we are at new business. And I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that council waive the following fees for a celebration of life ceremony for Russ Nichols held on October 19th, 2022, to be funded from the council discretionary fund, the amount of $322 plus HST for the Active Living Center rental. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. And are we at this one, right? 10-2? Oh, pardon? 10-2? Okay. But do I have to read the resolution first? Oh, yeah. Tarmo, do you want to speak to the Fish Rock and Jingle Lake Road? And once he does, if we have 2/3 vote, we have a resolution to put on the table. But we need 2/3 vote to do so. Do we need
Thank you.
2/3 vote to put on the table or to pass it? To pass it, okay.
Thank you, Your
Go
Worship. This motion is simply closing out previous business where staff have not received specific direction from council to close out this file and maintain the status quo. Previous presentations that I've made and previous reports that I presented simply were for information only and provided a history of the roads under question, and now we're seeking that final closure and direction from council.
Thank you for that. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Wiebe, whereas on March 2nd, 2022, Marion Nichols provided a deputation to General Committee noting her belief that Fish Rock and Jingle Lake roads are maintained roads by the town, and where staff have confirmed both roads have never been maintained roads and have never been assumed by the town. Now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to advise Ms. Nichols both Fish Rock and Jingle Lake roads are unmaintained and no changes will be made to the road ownership classification status. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thanks, Tarmo. Now we have the accessible and senior parking. Moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Schumacher, whereas Angel Ben presented to council at the September 28th General Committee meeting requesting additional parking for accessibility in seniors downtown Huntsville. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to investigate and report back on the potential of increasing the number of accessible parking spaces in the downtown area, and two, the possibility of implementing senior parking in the downtown area, and if this idea has been implemented by another municipality. Questions? All in favor? That carries. Okay, we are now at the BIA request, and this again needs 2/3 vote. I have moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Whereas the Huntsville BIA has requested to add 2 additional light features in Kent Park to complement the Eclipse light canopy and enhance the space for the community during the winter season. And whereas the enhancement will include a 12-foot Christmas tree and a 10-foot light-up holiday present that is 3D for individuals to walk through and take photos. Now therefore be it resolved that council supports the BIA proceeding with this initiative at no cost to the town of Huntsville for the 2022-2023 winter season. And further, that any associated park rental fees as outlined in the town's fee and charges bylaw be waived, and further, that staff work with the BIA to ensure all requirements of the town are met for use of this municipal space for this purpose. Questions? Councillor Stone.
Would this be the time to amend that to include the ice sculptures as the attractions in the park?
If you would so like to do that?
I would so like, if someone will second that.
We have Councillor Stone and Deputy Mayor Alcock. While we're doing up an amendment, Councillor Wiebe?
Thank you, Your Worship. So can you just say that again? Is it for the entire winter season or is it just for the holiday season? Because it seemed to me that it was meant for like the holiday season, so I
No,
don't.
it's the 2022-23 winter season, and the ice sculpture piece isn't even happening until February, so it is most definitely the winter season.
So just if I can just circle back, so we're talking about like holiday themed lights all year for the whole winter season. That's kind of how I'm reading it.
Yeah, it says 2 additional light features.
Right. And in the package, it was clearly a Christmas thing.
Counselor Stone, maybe you have more info.
I do not believe the tree and the present arch is meant to be left up all year, or all winter. So I'm sure that will come down in January.
Okay. But that's not how it reads.
Oh, hang on, the CAO added is in, so what piece did you add in?
For the community, during the winter season, so that's what I added, so it could actually come out space for the community, so there's no time period.
I don't mean to be grinchy, but, you know, Christmas lights all year, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's down there at the no cost.
Yep, so you can change that, community during the festive season or something like that. Or during the holiday season. That would be.
I'll change winter to holiday, how's that?
100% behind that.
Counselor Stone?
Does that affect the addition of the ice sculptures then?
No, because we're gonna have another clause dealing with the ice sculptures. And how does that word? Oh, does anybody want to deal with the snow plowing issue? Does anybody want a pending snow plowing capabilities? I don't see any movers for it, so. Oh, Counselor Withy?
I mean, if we can't, you can't, right? So that's going to be the issue, whether or not, I mean, it's either obvious, or if we need it in the motion, it should be there. I mean, if you just can't, you can't. I mean, I don't know if they can string the lights without having the thing plowed, and just everybody can look at it from the sidewalk.
Okay, so the amendment, moved by Counselor Stone, seconded by Deputy Mayor Alcock. We will be adding and ice sculptures to the first, well, now this doesn't work because you've got the ice sculptures up here with the holiday season, and the ice sculptures are in February. Just leave the ice sculptures and take out holiday, and just doing this, enhance the space for the community, period. Don't put a time frame in, yeah. Okay, so we'll add ice sculptures to the first paragraph, and in the second paragraph, after take photos, we will add a number of ice sculptures. And in the third paragraph, we're doing nothing. So those are the amendments. Adding ice sculptures and, adding ice sculptures is actually it. And we took away the winter season. Yeah, can we put it up? Thank you. So we've added ice sculptures in paragraph 1 and 2, and we've taken out winter season in paragraph 1, so it's just to enhance the space for the community. We'll assume everybody knows ice sculptures won't be there in July. Okay, all in favor of the amendment, and I need 2/3, and that carries. All in favor of the main motion as amended. I need 2/3, and that carries. And we're at general information. We're going to get through this. Council correspondence is in your package. District of Muskoka updates. Deputy Mayor Alcock, Community and Planning Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. It feels like it was a long time ago, but it actually wasn't. It was October 20th, and we had a number of reports for information under Children and Senior Services. We did approve funding for an affordable housing project under the MAHIP program towards Community Living South Muskoka. And they are doing a conversion project for a number of units. That was kind of exciting, for six supportive housing units. And we had an update from the Geographic Information System mapping demonstration, which was really cool. And it is all on the website. And two very procedural amendments, official plan amendments, were approved for circulation, public circulation. So just to go forward with the proposed amendment, and they're both in Huntsville. One was for the Highview Affordable Housing Project, as well as an OPA for the Treetops development also in the town of Huntsville. And again, they were both really procedural. The Treetops was with respect to the Condominium Act, and all we approved was to go to the public for public information. And the Highview was with respect to an easement. And again, we approved it going to the public for their public participation. And lastly, the Muskoka Tourism Marketing Agency, I think I reported it on this the last time, there's an agreement to terminate the lease for the information center on Highway 11, and that date has been changed. It will now be effective on April 1st, 2023. And that is the report.
Questions? Seeing none, Councillor Withey, Health Services.
Thank you, Worship. October 20th was the date of this committee meeting. There was the usual reports that we get from the health services, et cetera. A couple things that I want to note, though. In the motions, we had a motion for staff to consult with Hospice Muskoka and Hospice Huntsville about their capital funding needs and whether or not to consider them in the tax-supported budget for next year. You like that one? Yeah? And the other one is really long-winded. I won't read it, but it talks about how Ministry of Long-Term Care funding is not indexed, and therefore municipal operators are forced to subsidize provincial funding deficits through tax levy, which is unjust burden to taxpayers. And so there's all kinds of letter writing going on to the Premier, to the Minister, to all the, to AMO, to Marco, to FCM, and everywhere else, just to complain about not getting enough money to operate long-term care. So that's what I have to report.
Questions? Councillor Thompson, Engineering and Public Works.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yeah, we had a meeting, exactly, so long ago, but it was October 19th. And it was a short meeting, but a couple of significant events. We got an update on what's been going on with municipal waste from our Director, Mac. And so I think by now, everyone in town should have their green recycling bin, not just you folks up on Chubb Lake Road. So the rest of us are now, in the mix as well. So that was good. When things are going along pretty swimmingly there, it's been a challenge, I think, actually, over the last while, simply the last year or so, because of the service provider that we had. We have a new one that started actually this month. So we're hoping for sunny days and sunshine for the rest of the contract with these people. And then the other event was we, as a committee, and this was delegated, so it's not going to go to council, it was delegated to the committee, that we now single source the water meter reading services to a group called WEMCO for a period of up to 2 years. And the reason again is, what I think we've all been struggling with services and providers and stuff like that in various capacities, both municipally and district-wide. But this was a case where the previous provider wasn't capable of providing the service adequately, and so it's actually been WEMCO that's been doing the service since May anyway. So finding someone else to, at this point, was just impossible or very tough to do, so they couldn't. So it's just been single sourced. And so they'll have the contract for 2 years, so hopefully everything will be modernized in that particular capacity. And that was pretty much it. And end of that meeting.
All right, and the last Finance and Corporate Services meeting was pretty much for information only. I think there was one resolution to accept the status of the reserve reports. And District Council really was ratifying all the committee meetings, and there was the extension of draft approval for the condominium resort over in Muskoka Lakes, and also the renaming of Muskoka Road 38, but nothing really that pertained to Huntsville at that council meeting, so that's that. District, final windup of district. Huntsville, or hospital local share, we were going to have a report brought forward, but we have deferred that report, the local share, to the new council of 2022-26. Under your watchful eye, Deputy Mayor. Economic development, we were the recipient of a marketing award that I believe the CAO is going to speak to.
I believe the clerks indicated, Your Worship, that they provided you
Oh, yeah,
just
just
with a
the,
summary.
the
yes.
media release, but do you
Yeah.
want to talk about it?
I wasn't prepared to speak to it, but I certainly can. If you could share that, thank you very much. So we are quite excited that the town of Huntsville has received an award from the Economic Developers Association of Canada. It is a national organization of economic development professionals representing every province and territory across Canada with nearly 1,000 members. The association's mission is to enhance the professional competence of economic development professionals and ensure placement of qualified people in this field of economic development to advance economic development as a distinct, recognized, and self-governing profession and to contribute to Canada's well-being. So the association recognizes that marketing a community is an integral part of the economic development, therefore provides the Marketing Canada Award competition as an opportunity to exchange and review promotional and marketing material produced by municipalities across the country. This awards program is open to those organizations that undertake to promote and market Canadian provinces, territories, cities, towns, and areas with a view to improving economic well-being of Canadians. So the town of Huntsville has been awarded a prestigious Marketing Canada Award. It was our recovery project, which was Digging Downtown. This year's award program attracted submissions from across Canada, coast to coast, and we are grateful for the continued support of our Marketing Awards program. Just to add to that, and if I could ask Director Maxwell to expand if need be, but the town of Huntsville with a population of approximately 20,000 beat out populations of, I think it was 100,000 and more. It was quite substantial. So we were a little town that beat some pretty big places. So we are very proud and very thankful for all the work that went into this project, and that was from our own internal marketing team as well as work from the District of Muskoka, and we should be very proud of this accomplishment. So thank you.
And we are. Congratulations to our marketers. Last under general, the annual poppy campaign is underway. We know that we usually have the Legion come and present poppies, but because we didn't have a October cycle, they did come on the 28th of October and presented myself with a poppy, and so I see everybody's wearing them today. And November 11th is this Friday. The Remembrance Day service, I believe, is back on for the public. Starts at 10:30. Councillor Schumacher?
I just wanted to say thank you to whoever puts those banners up around town, because I think they are fabulous, that we get a chance to see that. And I don't know how many Facebook pages people follow, but I know the What's Happening in Port Sydney Utterson and Utterson Community Club have recently posted a family member talked about Mabel Patterson, who used to own the garage to 1987 in Utterson, and her career as a driver with the Canadian Women's Army Corps in 1941, and she got to drive around Winston Churchill in 1943 when he came for a visit. And so we do have some, really significant members of the community here that should be recognized.
I think it's the BIA that's responsible for those, and they are wonderful. So we do have a closed session, but before we retire into closed session, I want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our staff for their dedication to the town, in particular over this past term, and the challenges that we all faced during COVID. And I know it never really pays to single out certain people for fear of missing others, but I have to express a special thanks to the clerks and IT departments for keeping council going over Zoom for over 2 years. I know it wasn't easy, and you guys did an amazing job. And you deserve kudos above everybody else. Also to the clerks, we know that you're the engine that keeps us running, and we appreciate it, whether it's over Zoom or in person. So thank you. And it's not to diminish the contributions of the other departments in the town. And on behalf of council, I want to thank each department, from the CAO to the directors, right down the chain to our frontline staff. Our frontline staff, who meet and greet and serve our residents daily, are the heart and soul of the operation. And they provide the services that keep the municipality going. And I hope every manager and director expresses our thanks down to the very core of the people who do the work for us on a daily basis. I also want to extend a special thank you to Councillor Thompson for 22 years of service to his community. Ryan, you've been elected to council 6 times, and I have no doubt that had you not decided to retire, you would have made it 7. Your dedication to the residents of Huntsville and at the district table will be missed, but I know everyone wishes you the very best. Councillors Withey and Wiebe, congratulations to both of you on 8 years. I know you too will be missed. And of course, I will join the 3 of you in celebrating this as our last council meeting. To the remaining councillors, congratulations on winning another term. Together with your new elected colleagues, I'm confident the town will be well served. To this table, to my friends, thank you for making the 2018-2022 council a success. And with that, I have a resolution to go into closed session. Don't I read this first? We're now going into closed session. After the motion has been adopted, please pause while we obtain confirmation that the live stream has been muted. That means don't talk until we get the thumbs up. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Armour, be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public, commencing now at 7:47 p.m. for the purpose of considering the following matters under the Municipal Act, Section 239(2), litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, confidential report development 2022-167, OLT appeal number 22-002-969, 3933 and 4215 South Portage Road, and confidential report HR 2022-12. And just before I call the question, when we do break, staff have presented us with a beautiful cake over there, and we're going to cut it and eat it. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, and we are back live, and I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Armour, whereas appeal number 22-002969 has been filed by Langmaid Island Corporation to the Ontario Land Tribunal for 3933 and 4215 South Portage Road. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to engage with the appellant and the District of Municipality of Muskoka to resolve the matters of town interest for the Phase 2 subdivision appeal. Questions? All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2022-133 be received, numbered, and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 7th day of November 2022. All in favor? And the last motion of this term of council, moved by Councillor Wiebe and seconded by Councillor Thompson, be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 8:04 p.m. All in favor? And that carries.